All right, so we're going to do some things now to make our class a little more Java-y and a little more compliant with the way Java is supposed to work as a language. One of the first things that we should do is not have our class live within our main class of our main program. The whole point of a class is it's supposed to be portable. It's supposed to be something you can use in various programs. So we should take our album class and make it live by itself in a separate Java file. Let me cut it out of our main program and go to our little sidebar here where we can have other files and create a new file. And I'm going to call it album.java. It should have the same name as the class you're going to define in it. And I'm going to now just paste my class into this separate document of its own. The one thing I can change here is where it says public static class album. I can take that static out. I don't need that anymore because it's its own class. It's not living inside of another class. And we can. I'll give you guys a document that kind of explains the nitty-gritty meaning of all these things. I want to focus on the practicalities first before we get bogged down in vocabulary. So now my class is its own document. It lives by itself. I can take this and put it in other projects as needed. If I come back to main, I should be able to run it, and it should run the same as before because all of these packages are included in the same project. So my main method of my main program class has access to everything in that folder. So it still runs even though that class is not defined here within my my program class. It lives by itself. So that's the first thing we should get in the habit of doing. Give your classes their own little files where they can live and be changed without ever changing your main program. And that keeps your main program really, really simple. If all your classes live somewhere else, all that should happen in your main program is calling methods of your classes. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save here. Now, what I'm going to do is to make the instance variables of this album class private instead of public, so that the only way to read or write to these variables is for the object itself to do it with one of its methods. I should, now that I've changed this to private, I should not be able to change these variables from the outside, for example, from main. So if we go back to my program here where I say my favorite album's year is 2014, my favorite album's title is 1989, that shouldn't work anymore because those variables are now private. Let's go ahead and run the program. And I should get an error saying year has private access and album. Line 14, artist has private access. Title has private access. So when I try to change the value of those variables, Java says, no, you can't do that. Those variables belong to that object, the object my favorite album, and only my favorite album is allowed to change them. And you might say, well, that's crazy. Why would you want variables that you can't change? Well, you can change them, but you can only change them using methods of the class, using that object's own methods. And this may seem a little cumbersome if you don't understand the idea of private data in object-oriented program, but it's very, very important to the object-oriented paradigm that the objects own their own data and they only have permission to change it themselves. So what I need if I want to set, say, the value of year, is I need a method called setYear. So I'm going to create a public method. It's going to not return anything, so it's going to be a void data type. setYear. And I'm going to give it a year as a parameter, int, and I'll call it year input. Okay. So I'm going to call this method setYear from outside, and I'm going to give it a number and say, hey, you album object, take this variable and put it into the value for year. So year equals year input. Okay. So whatever object is being called here, it's going to take, I'm going to need a semicolon there, it's going to take the number I input and put it into the value of its own year. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste these real quick for the other 4 instance variables. So each instance variable has its own what's called a set method. Okay? I input a year, it puts that into the year. I input an artist string, it puts that into the artist. I input a string called title input, it puts that into the title. Okay? So these are 4 methods of the album class that let you, from the outside, set the value of the instance variables. Again, this may seem cumbersome if you aren't fully on board with this notion that variables should be private to an object, that you shouldn't be able to change them. You can tell the object to change them, but you should not be able to change them from outside the object. So now we've got methods called set year, set artist, set title, and set rating. And now, if we go back to our main program, instead of saying my favorite album's year is 2014, I will call the set, actually I can type that easier, I will call the set year method of that object and pass it the number 2014 and say, please, my favorite album, will you set your year to 2014? I will do that with the set artist method. Please, will you set your artist to Taylor Swift? Please, will you set your title to 1989? Notice these aren't equal signs. This is not a variable assignment the way they were before. This is a call of a method that belongs to that object. Okay? So set your year to 2014, set your artist to Taylor Swift, set your title, set your rating. Now when I run this, it should run exactly the way it did before. Okay? My print album method prints out the title, artist, release date, and the rating. Suppose I wanted the value of one of those variables. Suppose I wanted to say, instead of my favorite album, print album, let's comment that out. Suppose I just wanted to print the title of my favorite album. So I would normally do something like system out print line, my favorite album dot title. Print the title of my favorite album. Does that work? No. Why? Because title has private access in album. Not only can I not change the variable values from outside the object, I can't even ask for directly the value of that title. I can ask the object, will you please tell me your title, but I can't get at that private variable directly. So in addition to set methods, I'm going to write 4 get methods. These are my 4 set methods. I should comment this. Set methods for the album class. And I'm going to also create get methods for the album class. If I want to know its variables, I have to run a method that says, will you please give me the value of those variables? And again, I'm going to copy and paste those real quick. Oh, I don't even have those written yet. Let's see if I can do this without screwing it up. Let's just do the year for now. public. It's not going to be void. It's going to be int get year. It's not going to have any parameters. I'm just asking for something. And then it's going to just return the year. Semicolon. Okay. So that is a get method that I can ask, hey, album, tell me what is stored in the variable year. I'm not getting it directly. I'm running a method that says, will you please give it to me? And then I can write one of these for all of the other instance variables. And I hope I don't screw this up because I haven't done this in a long time. So what are my instance variables? It's year, it's artist, it's title, and it's rating. Okay? And so this is going to be artist, return title, return rating. And we got to make sure that the variable types match. So this is going to return a string. Oh, can I have a return type that's not a primitive? I don't know the answer to that. Let's see. This is going to be a string, and this is going to be a double. So the year is an int, the artist is a string, the title is a string. Let me put some returns between these so it's not quite so messy. Okay. So I have 4 methods for setting the variables, and I have 4 methods for getting the variables. Okay. And if this works, and if it didn't, I'm going to have to record this whole video again. Here, in my main program, where it says system print my favorite album.title, that doesn't work because it's private. I have to say system out print my favorite album get title and call that method. Okay? Does that work? Aha! Favorite album is 1989, so it does work. My favorite album get artist should return Taylor Swift. Okay? So once I make these variables, and actually another thing to notice about the CodeHS interface, you don't have to open that sidebar once you create that second file. They show up here as tabs in the top of your interface. I know you can't see my arrow. In the top of the interface, right here where I'm clicking, you can switch back and forth by tabbing from one file to the other. So once we, and my indentation here is kind of a nightmare at the moment. Once we make these variables private, which we should, unless you have a really good reason to make these variables public, your class variables should always be private. Unless you have a really good reason to make them public, you make them private, which means you can't get at them from the outside, which means for every class you create, if you are going to want to change those variables ever once you create that object, you're going to have to write get and set methods for every one of these variables. Now, get and set are just conventions. You can call these anything. Instead of set year, I could call this change year. And change artist. Oops. What did I just do there? Change artist. Change title. Change rating. Okay, I can do that if I want. I go to my main program, and instead of set, I can make these change, and everything will still work. But it is a convention in Java to call these methods set and get. It should still work. It doesn't matter what they're called. Okay. It's just a convention to refer to them by those names. And so every time you create a class, you're usually going to immediately just create set methods and get methods for all the instance variables, for all the fields of that class. Unless you know that once you create the object, you won't ever want to change them, which is possible. Or you won't ever need them outside the class, which is also possible. That's the way you do it. Okay. Cumbersome? Yes. I mean, imagine you've got a class with 10, 15, 20 instance variables. That means 10, 15, 20 get methods and 10, 15, 20 set methods. It's a lot going on behind the scenes. That's one reason we keep our class in a separate file hidden over here so we don't have to worry about it. But it really is crucial to this kind of security aspect of Java, the idea that an object owns its own variables and is only gives permission to change them from the inside with its own methods. And so that's how we do that in Java. Okay? And that's what I expect every time you create a class from here on out, that its variables are private and that it has set and get methods for every one of its variables. What I'll do for an assignment this week is give you this album class, ask you to create 2 more fields and create set and get methods for all those fields, and then to do the same thing with your own class, whatever data structure you might want to come up with, to create your own class that has those set and get methods and a print method that can then output the contents of that class.